done. Thank you again for joining us this October. We're preparing for a special holiday season. Specifically, this Christmas season, we've two really wonderful opportunities to promote love and unity in our often divided communities. First, we can invite our friends to light the world with love with us through stories of goodness that we can then place positive media stories to showcase the acts of love that are happening all around us. And we want you to be successful. So tonight we'll be presenting training on both of these topics. So this evening, first, Tanya Covington, our North America West media specialist, will review our Stories of Goodness media initiative. Let me say that I've been working with Tanya for several years. She's been a pioneer in this effort. We're delighted to have her with us. And then we'll turn the time to Dan Hinman, Kirk Davis, and Christina Buskirk, our North America social media team, and they'll update you on this year's Light the World with Love initiative and present ideas that you can use to spread this message on social media. Let me also say we're very fortunate to have Dan and Kirk and Christina. They're exceptional in their abilities, and so we're very lucky to have them and their expertise and their willingness to be with us this evening. After their short presentations, we'll open up for your questions and comments for either topic. You can enter your questions in the Q&A section of this Zoom webinar. Sandy Hinman, who is helping us this evening and has just been a tremendous resource to our area committee. She and I will collect your questions for the presenters. This presentation is then being recorded and will be available to watch on YouTube and in the North America West Area Communication Support Community on Facebook, starting tomorrow evening. We'll send the PowerPoint and links to the YouTube to your coordinating council communication directors to distribute to their stakes. If you have committee members who are unable to attend this live broadcast, they'll be able to watch later. So I want to thank you again for tuning in. And what I'd like to do now is turn the time to Tanya to update us on Stories of Goodness. Tanya?
Thank you, Troy. Stories of Goodness is a media campaign that generates shareable news content for social media to help light the world with love. And these are news stories and human interest stories of love that individuals, families, and groups are showing as we follow the example of our Savior, Jesus Christ. To have a story publish or air during the month of December, we've provided a 10-week timeline of things you can begin doing now. And so the purpose of my presentation tonight is really talk to you about the things that we're doing now to prepare for a story to air on TV, radio, or publish in a newspaper during the month of December. So the first thing that you can do is really begin collaborating with stakes or coordinating councils that share your media market. The media market spans multiple geographic boundaries with stakes often. And so it's nice to be coordinated and plan who's pitching which story and when, so that we're not stepping on toes and there's no surprises with other stakes that are sharing that media market. And then really identifying who is the contact at that TV station or newspaper, who are they, and introduce yourself. Those are the first two things that you can begin doing now. And then the next step is really gathering story ideas. And some great places to start are looking at the JustServe specialists for what projects are going to be coming or that are posted during the month of December. Those are great stories that can highlight youth doing service. They can highlight interfaith groups working together with us. And those are the types of stories that would really help light the world with love. On the Global Communication Network, you can learn more about the Light the World and view on the North America West. If you change to that view, we have a presentation listed under articles called Stories of Goodness 2021. And this presentation shows news articles from last year, some of the successes that you've had, campaign instructions, and the key messages this year that will really help you determine which story would be of greatest interest to kind of pursue for this opportunity. We hope that you all decide to participate in some way and have tremendous success by learning from the experiences and the examples and templates that we've provided. Other resources can include your Coordinating Council Assistant Communication Director for Media. Check with them and see if there's best practices or ideas or things that they can share with you to be successful. Throughout the month of December, as your news is posted online to a news media outlet, add your post to our community support group on Facebook any Monday with the hashtag Media Monday. And this way we're not filling the group throughout the week, but we'd love to see your posts and be able to celebrate news coverage that's happening throughout the month of December and help track the news coverage that we can then share with Salt Lake City. And it also provides us an opportunity to see what others are doing around North America West area. So that's the information that I have to share with you tonight, but let's dive more into the social media piece of this Light the World campaign. And I'd like to turn the time now over to Dan.
Sorry, Tanya, before we turn the time over to Dan, I have a question for you. So really what we're saying is right now we want to be identifying stories that we can be pitching in December, right? And isn't it true that sometimes we've had most success when we're partnering with those of other faiths? Is that right?
Those are powerful messages that are that we're really trying to seek out and find those powerful stories of love and service as we link arms with other faiths. And so if you have these stories, they're extremely compelling and hopefully support things that are already in your annual plan. So that's a great place to start and look.
Thank you, Tanya. All right. Well, as Tanya mentioned, what we'd like to do now is the first piece of this is Tanya's 10-week program of identifying stories and beginning to think about now before Halloween about the stories you'd like to pitch and partners you'd like to work with. We know this works. We have 4 or 5 years under our belt of doing this. And then what we'd like to talk about now is how to amplify this over social media. So with that, I'd like to turn it to our team of experts, Dan Hinman, Christina Buskirk, and Kirk Davis.
Hey, thank you so much, Troy. It's wonderful to be here tonight with all of you. We're excited to be able to share some ideas about how to light the world with love through social media. Thank you, Tanya, for that overview about how we can also share goodness. Before we jump into this, I want to take a quick poll. And the poll that I want to do, we've got 292 of us on this call right now, 293, somebody just joined. And I'm really curious about, right, some of you are already starting to fill out. What is your calling? I would like to see who's with us tonight, whether you're a stake CD, a social media specialist, committee member on the coordinating council, priesthood leader, all these different options. And so I'm going to give you just a minute here to go ahead and respond. So far, 180 of you have replied. This will be fun for us to know who actually received this training tonight. Of course, we don't know your names. We just know your answer to the question. So I'll give you just a moment, and then we'll dive into this next part of the presentation. I love watching the answers come in. We've got 256 replies out of 290 in attendance. So we'll give you just like another 10 seconds, and then we'll show you what the results are. Okay, ending the poll and sharing results. So on this call tonight, you'll see 261 replies out of 294. We've got 23 CCCDs, 39 stake social media specialists, 9 media specialists. We've got some Just Serve specialists with us, which I'm excited about. You just see how this this turned out tonight. We also have 14 priesthood leaders. So welcome, priesthood leaders. We love priesthood support for communication. So thank you for being with us. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that now, and we'll go to actually our presentation. So the theme this year, as you probably know, light the world, but they've added these other two essential words this year, light the world with love. And so why is that? Well, what is the purpose of this theme? Since a new star first appeared above Bethlehem, Christmas has been a season of light, reminding us that Jesus Christ is the light of the world. Together, we can again bring light through service, friendship, relief, and so on into the lives of all of God's children. So this little relight the world or light the world. And then this Christmas, let's reignite empathy and affection for one another and encourage all of God's children to follow the Savior's admonition to love one another as I have loved you. So these are the main themes, light the world with love this year. I'm excited that we have Stake Just Serve specialists with us tonight. We've talked a lot on the council level of the importance of communication, working more closely with our Just Serve friends. And these two initiatives, identifying and sharing stories of goodness and light the world with love, tie so closely to both of our roles. We as communication folks should be relying on the Just Serve people to help us find these stories that we can use that have to do with partnering with others to bring good into the community. And then also identifying how we can customize the Light the World social by highlighting others in the community who are doing good as well. And so I hope you take these opportunities to really work together closely on both of these initiatives. Now I'm going to turn the time over to Kirk Davis. Kirk is a social media specialist for the Tacoma, Washington Coordinating Council, and Kirk's going to share some ideas with you as well.
Well, it's wonderful to be with all of you tonight. Thank you, Dan. And I think this is going to be a very inspiring season, a time when we really need it. And keep in mind, depending on your calling and your scope, that there could be 3 different audiences that you'll try to reach. And typically, based on some previous trainings we've had, hopefully you won't be mixing those up. But of course, always, I think we have an opportunity to inspire our friends, but this kind of plays into our roles in communication to reach out to our community. So these will be our friends who are typically not members of the church. And hopefully you have been through your social media efforts, developing relationships with leaders in the community, churches, nonprofits, and other service organizations, so that you're building more and more relationships, so that as you share this campaign, it will reach more people in your community and touch the lives of those who we love. And of course, those who might be more member focused, and we would think of that as inward facing groups, that perhaps your efforts are a little more towards, or your stake presidents have directed you more towards your providing social media for your members. So that will be, sometimes I think that's a little easier because we hopefully have deeper connections within our membership. And then if you're supporting the missionaries and engaging friends, this would be on the Come Unto Christ pages and those who are monitoring those pages. Dan, if you'll do the next slide. So like in previous years, and you're going to see some examples of the calendar, and these are the daily prompts that people opt into. And this is a chance for you with your social media to get ahead of the, this is what you're seeing here is the prompts that will be given ahead of time, so that you can start creating social media posts that would, you could relate to your audience. And for instance, if you're trying to create some posts that would link to your page, Dan earlier pointed out to us December 4th, Love Thy Neighbor. There might be some some nonprofit organizations or churches in your community, service organizations that you could tag, in your posts and create some posts that are very specific to your community or to those organizations. Go ahead, Dan, next slide. So, you're going to get a copy of this. So tonight is just kind of a preview. This isn't meant for you to read these and do something with them tonight. It's just meant to show you that you'll have these. So we will be putting links in our group, so you can keep an eye out for this, but you'll have this to use for your planning. Next slide, Dan. So, and I think, Dan, go ahead to the next slide. So the campaign goes through December 26th. And so you'll see those daily prompts and you can decide which ones you want to create social media posts for. So this is a look at the calendar, and you've seen this before, and Christina will talk more about it. But I want to thank all of you for thinking ahead, planning ahead, looking at how you can touch lives that you're assigned to touch. And Christina, I'll turn the time over to you.
Hi, so I'm going to get into some of the nitty gritty of social media and give you some examples of ways to share Light the World on social media. So I'm Christina Buskirk. I'm in the Danville Stake as the communication director, and I love social media. Okay, so the first thing that you can do, this is just the easiest way that you can get Light the World content out to your community, is by sharing the church's posts. So you want to watch their social media channels, make sure you're following all the church's social media channels on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever you're using. And you can just click to reshare that content. You can also reshare on Instagram to your stories if you're on Instagram. So that's one of the easiest things you can do. You can also tag as appropriate opinion leaders in those posts that you think might enjoy hearing about those things. So that's a really simple way to do it. If you've never done that before and that's new to you, we do have past tutorials we've shared in the North America West area group, and you can go and look at those. I'll make sure to spotlight those in the group this week so that you can have that resource, because I know not everybody's on the same page with social media. Okay, so then the second thing you can do is customize selected posts. So Dan, we need to go to my next slide. Okay, so here are 3 examples of customized posts. Now, these aren't the best examples out there because I just grabbed some from some places. Like, at least my example isn't the best one because I just thought of it today. But you all are amazing resources, especially those of you that have done this for a while. You kind of know what to do. So for Light the World, we want to be creating our own posts in addition to sharing about the church's posts that target our opinion leaders that we're working with, the community organizations we're working with. So for example, if you look at the example in the middle of the page from the Laguna Niguel Stake, every year they do such a wonderful job of sharing about organizations as they look at the calendar, the Light the World calendar. They might pick one that's talking about giving or foods and toilet, like giving food, and then they find an organization that they can spotlight. So that middle one is a great example of how they're sharing about an organization in the community that they partner with. In the Oakland area this year, we are so fortunate to be having a giving machine coming to the Oakland Temple grounds. So we'll be sharing about that. And on Giving Tuesday, that is a great post to share if you're in the Bay Area. You can share and invite your community to the giving machines, and you can invite opinion leaders there or spotlight the organizations that the Oakland Temple will be spotlighting. And if your area has a giving machine, you can spotlight that too. So these are just 3 examples of ways you could customize posts. Now, I know a lot of you have done this before. And so in the chat, I would love for you, if you have an idea in your head of something you've done in the past to customize a post and make it work for Light the World, that reaches out to community members or opinion leaders or organizations. If you might want to share an example or just really quickly, just like talk about an example, just do it in the chat and just say, hey, we did this last year. So I'm going to give you like a minute to think about, is there something that you've shared for the Light the World campaign that worked really well for your stake or your Just Serve social media sites? I'm going to give you a minute to see if you can think of any that you want to type and share. I know it's tricky because the comment section here isn't visual, And I know some of you might do a better job of sharing as something visual. So we'll make sure we set a section up in the North America West area group where you can also link those examples. And yes, there are locations for the Giving Machine website, and those you can find. The church has a Giving Machine website that you can find online. So any examples that anyone has used, and if no one has any examples, don't worry, we'll make sure to steal some from you in the group if no one can think of any right now. Okay, so in addition to examples of customizing selected posts, the third thing that you can do, oh, I got one, just a second, we're gonna go back. Thank you, Tasha. Nativity collections for community viewing. Okay, so if you are hosting an event like a nativity in your area, that is a great time during this Light the World campaign to promote that. Or if other community organizations are doing something like that, this is a great time to promote that. All right, I'm gonna scan these really quick. Thank you guys. I know it takes a minute or two. Free Christmas concerts, so great. Yes, hopefully this year we'll get to share about our Christmas concerts, food sharing activities. Wonderful. We have had different youth create Light the World posts. What a great way to get our youth involved. So I like how you did that. Great. So you have youth access guest post authors and sign up on a sign up page in November. Okay, so that's why we're trying to get this information out to you now, because some of this stuff does take a lot of planning. So that is awesome that you did that. So make sure you're scrolling through these comments in here. Christmas in Bethlehem event, canned food drives, outdoor walks of the Savior's life, live nativity. All of those are great things that you can share and tie in to some of these customizable posts. They don't have to be yours. You can also look outward and find events that other interfaith groups that you're working with are sharing, all of that sort of stuff. And yeah, keep scrolling. If you can't see something, I apologize. And that is awesome. Okay, so we're gonna go to the next part, and then I will highlight some more of those in the North America West group. Thank you guys. We don't wanna keep you here all night. I'm so glad you guys came up with some ideas. Okay, the third example that you can share tonight, that I'm gonna share tonight, is one from the Laguna Niguel Stake. And their social media account for their stake is Church of Jesus Christ Laguna Niguel, and they have been doing this for 4 years. So we don't expect any of you to do this if you don't want to, but this is such a fun example that we wanted to share it. So typically the church puts out a Light the World calendar, like you saw Kirk share, while the Laguna Niguel Stake has decided to create their own Light the World calendar. And so this is an example. We'll put a bigger version in the North America West group. Or send it to you via email. But each of these little tiny squares that you can't see very well, I apologize, highlights a different event or service opportunity in their community. So they reach out each year and they find city events like tree lightings. They find interfaith church events like midnight mass. They're not just from their church. They find service opportunities. And then they work with organizations and other community leaders to get this information out in their community. They print copies of it and distribute it to other interfaith groups. And then they also include their own event, their Christmas chalk walk, on this. So what a great example of taking all of this great goodness that we're getting from Light the World and tweaking it and customizing it for your own community. You don't have to do something like this. This is just an example in a big way. And I'm sure you guys can come up with ways that are even small or big to do something similar. During the month of December, they highlight each of these throughout the month. So it kind of gives them a really good template for the month of December. They know what they're posting every single day on social media too, which is really nice. And they also emphasize to their community that not everyone has to do everything. It's just an option for people to do. So what a great way to kick off the season.
Christina, could I just jump in and say, one thing I love about this is, well, a couple things. I love this website. They can go to interfaithlighttheworld.org. And isn't that a perfect, it's taken, so we can't all use that, but that's a great way to position this whole thing. And then I noticed that in the top, they highlight justserve.org in the lead paragraph too. So it's a great way to tie JustServe into these efforts as well.
Right. And when we're working together with these organizations, they definitely are interested in sharing this with their groups. It's not just all about us, is they're bringing the community together, which is wonderful. Okay, so we'll come back to, if you have questions about this or comments, please make sure you put it in the Q&A and we'll come back to that at the end. All right, next I want to talk about even more nitty-gritty, some of the resources you'll have access to. Okay, all of the Light the World assets will be created in English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And in some other areas, there'll be some other languages. So watch the Facebook group and watch your email. We'll be giving you all of these assets in the next, I think we're gonna post it in the next day, right, Dan, by tomorrow night? Is that the ones we have?
Right. You'll specify which ones will be posted tomorrow, but as we get additional assets down the road, we'll post them in the group.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, next. All right, so here we're going to give you access to this. These are the links to the assets. So you'll get the links to the logos in different languages. So if you look at the bottom right corner of this image, you can see the Light the World logo. So that's what you're going to click on, the little blue words in this PowerPoint. We'll also just link them directly in the Facebook group so you have them. All right, so you have the logo, so then you can put that on any of the images you're using. Then the next one, thanks Dan, is the PDF calendar from the church. So like I said with Laguna Niguel Stake, they print that calendar and then they print their calendar on the other side. What a great way to marry the two together and make sure that that's shared with the community. So you have access to those ones in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French to start. If we get more languages, which hopefully we will, then, because I know Chinese and some other languages would be very helpful. All right, next, Dan. Okay, then we have just, this is going to be the campaign style guide. So this helps you know if you're creating assets. So if you're the social media specialist or if you're a graphic design sort of person, this is for you. We go to the next one. Okay, so here we have the logo. So you can kind of see how it looks, what it's supposed to look like. The church wants us to stick to what they've created. Don't go create your own logo. If you're going to redo it at all, you're gonna want to follow this guide. All right, next. Perfect. Okay, and then this is what it looks like if you're doing the full text for a logo. Now, most likely, most of you will just use the logo that we're going to post, and you can just copy this onto your image. You won't necessarily need to type this out yourself, but you have it just in case. All right, next. Okay, that's the spacing guidelines. We're not going to go into depth on that, but if you're a graphic designer, you probably know more about this than others. This is it in the different languages. Awesome. And then the star, which is great to use if you'd like. And then next. Then this is what I like, as I like to know the colors. So this has the color choices. It also has the numbers. So if you're using Canva or Photoshop, you can type in the numbers and get the right color. So you make sure that the colors you're choosing to use for your images match with what the church is using to use. This left side, that shows the color inspiration. So you can kind of get a vibe for what they're going for. All right, next. And then these are the fonts. Sometimes the ones they pick are accessible. Sometimes you just have to find the closest, best one that's in a similar family. Notice one is serif font, one is sans serif. So you want to make sure to watch that. All right, and the next, that's it. So we gave you a lot of information about that. We will have lots of time to chat about it in the North America West group. And then now we're going to go to Sandy for questions, I think.
Before we do that, I wanted to just recap. We've just thrown a lot of information to our 315 attendees. So again, what we're really talking about is we know we need to think about this like a campaign. The question came up of, well, can I do this year round? Well, the answer is, many of these things, yes, but between now and December 26th, we need to think of this like preparing for a campaign. And so there's really three pieces to it. One is how we can link arms with others in our communities. Number two is how do we find those stories that we can, I call it story mining. How do we find those stories of goodness and of lighting the world? Sometimes they're, heartwarming, or something our youth is doing, something that, so one of the Just Serve teams is identified, and how do we highlight those? And then Tanya talked about working with local media. That can be newspaper, that can be radio, that can be television, and start highlighting those stories. And we love it when they highlight those, and it's as us linking arms with those of other faiths in our communities. And then Dan and Christina and Kirk just talked about how to amplify these things and how we can do something literally every day with our social media outreach efforts. So it's really a powerful tool, and we're talking to you now on October 17th, so you get the wheels moving. But there's a wonderful opportunity to be creative, and you can, these are just thought starter ideas, but we're hoping that this gets the creative juices going. So with that, what we'd like to do is then Sandy Hinman and I are going to tag team some questions and answers, and because there's 300 plus people, we found it much easier to do it on a webcast over this chat. So please post your questions in questions and answers. So Sandy, let me turn it to you to maybe read the first one or two, and then you and I can tag team on those.
Well, a general question that's been coming up is, especially during Tanya's presentation, is will there be links available to the specifics that you mentioned in your presentation, and where will those be found? For Tanya.
Dan, do you want to take this one?
Well, do you think, Sandy, they're asking for the link to the 10 steps that Tanya explained, and more news and more details about share stories of goodness?
Specific story links, yes.
So then Tanya was sharing that the ideal place to go is to the Global Communication Network, right, Tanya?
Yeah, there's a presentation there that we're using for training. It's under the North America West area. So usually when you log into the GCN, it defaults to headquarters. And you'll see there right now, there's a Light the World overview for the world there. You'll want to switch the view to North America West and view under articles, and you can see some best practices and tips and ideas for Light the World 2021.
Tanya, thank you. And listen, if you're having troubles, accessing accessing that, reach out to your CCCD, and this person can help you with that, or reach out to us and we'll provide a link to you. We just want to make sure that you know that there's more resources available. And frankly, we don't have enough time this evening to cover those. And Tanya's done a masterful job of creating those resources.
One of the questions that came up is someone was wondering if these stories for Light the World are supposed to be different than ones we do throughout the year.
The answer is not really. They are the same. What we've provided for you for this media campaign are some key messages that can really focus the story idea around lighting the world with love and how we do that. I noticed there was a question about, well, I pitched this great story of just love and service, and they didn't mention the church's name. And is this still a good story of goodness? And the answer is absolutely. And this is where sharing that news content through social media is such a treasure, because we have the ability to tag and to create in that post the additional context of, this is a member of this congregation, and you can add the additional context that's not in the news article that published or ran, and then you add the hashtag Light the World. You tag any Just Serve partners in that post, and that way they're able to see it and share it and like it as well. So the ability to amplify this news content through social media is key to Light the World.
Great. There's another question from Ann Mortensen that I think you saw, Tanya. It says, she says, I pitched a story about ladies in our community making over 80 quilts for the local gospel mission. Our local paper picked up the story and ran it, which was just fabulous. No one who read the paper even knows that I was the one who pitched the story, and there was no mention and no involvement of the church in the story. So I feel confused. Did I do it all right? Is there some other way I should be doing this?
You did it just right. That is a media success. And a lot of times this media assistant director of communication media role is often the unnamed source. And sometimes even when you get an article published that you have written word by word, your name is not mentioned in the byline because you're not a staff of the newspaper or the publication. And that is just fine. That is just the way that it goes. But if the news article doesn't make mention of the church's name or other key individuals that you can tag that are highlighted, that have those social media accounts that you can tag in the news post, you add the additional context. And so the social media piece is where you can really give that additional amplification and broader readership. And our news partners love that as well because it drives hits to their news sites, and they'll see, wow, we've got hundreds of hits on this news story, and the readers must really be interested in this type of content. And I'll just mention that sometimes if you're not successful pitching a story and those news organizations haven't been receptive, typically the month of December is a softball pitch. It is the easiest time of year to secure news media coverage because they're less prone to feature conflict and other news value during the month of December, when it's traditionally a time of peace and hope and celebration.
We have a question from Debbie Adams, feeling that the 10-week plan is a great resource and wondering if you would recommend following the same steps at other times of the year, maybe in a shorter span.
Yep, it's the same process. We're just walking you through it to start now so that we can see that news hit in the month of December. Sometimes I'm asked, hey, if a news story pops up, in November, is it too late? No, it's not too late. If you've got a compelling news story or a human interest story to share, this timeline can be compressed if you start now and secure priesthood leader approval for, yes, we'd like to pursue this type of news story. And then as one comes up later in the cycle, closer to November or December, you're ready to go. You've already established a media contact. You know who to send that story idea to. And you've already discussed with your neighboring stakes what stories they're doing so that the one that you're pursuing doesn't override or step on toes.
Great. Troy, we have some basic training questions that I'm seeing on here as well. Some people who are new to their callings. Where would you suggest that they go to be trained?
So that's an excellent question. So I'm seeing some of these questions. Let me try and answer a couple of them. This comes from Sister Markinovich, I believe. She said, our state covers essentially one town. We are in the suburbs of the Seattle area. We don't have any local news, and it's hard to pitch the major news. You need advice here. We did have lunch earlier this year with a very small online town news. We don't have much reach outside of that. Well, about 12 years ago, I was the communications director for a very small community outside of Seattle. And so let me just say I have special appreciation for this. So one of the things is, what we see as some of these small new online news outlets is they're desperate for copy. And so in that case, 12 years ago, we offered to be a resource identifying stories of goodness. And so sometimes we'd send in photographs and sometimes we'd author an article. It wouldn't just be about the church, but it would be about stories of goodness. So there's an opportunity to be a resource. The other thing that I'll say is Tanya and I collaborate reaching the Seattle market as well. Oftentimes we just need to be coordinated and working with, in this case, Matt Latimer, who oversees the Seattle, the coordinating council in that area. Actually, I think I lied. I think it's Marcia Bean. Let me just double check on that. But the point of it is working with your CCCD and to coordinate stories that can be pitched, because we know that we have lots of community. There's lots of media overlap. So the next question we have is from Tammy. Said, I just got called as our state communications director. What is the Just Serve role and who is involved? So let me just say, Just Serve is a calling, and they are to work hand in glove with the state communications director. And the best place to get training would be from your CCCD. And if you don't know who that is, you can reach out to myself or to Dan Hinman or to Tanya Covington, and we can help you identify that person, and we can do some training there. So let me stop. Sandy, back to you.
Sister Silver wonders if it's a problem to use Light the World and the church's name and Member Serve at the same time on missionary pages.
Dan?
It's on the missionary pages. Since that is totally focused on missionary work, then absolutely use the church's name, proselytize all you want, invite people to read the Book of Mormon, encourage people to learn more about the church. All those things are great activities on missionary pages and more. And Light the World is excellent for them too, because it's a great way to showcase the church's concern about the community and love for our neighbors.
So I'm cognizant of time. It's 7:45. So correct me if I'm wrong, Dan. I think we were trying to wrap this up in 40 to 45 to 50 minutes. Is that right?
Whatever you think is right, Troy.
Okay. So I want to be sensitive to folks' time. I know the answer to this question. There's an anonymous question that says communication or communications. And so here's the correct answer. At the church, it's the Department of Communication. But I will tell you, I work for a global communications firm, so it's represented both. But we talk about it in church vernacular, it's communication. So if I jump back and forth, please forgive me. But it is church communication.
I think that's about all the questions I can see. Troy, do you see any others?
I see one that says from Sister Bundy, will there be a Give Thanks campaign in November this year?
Who are you asking, Troy?
Dan, I'm asking him directly that. The hard questions I send to you, Brother Hinman.
Okay, all right. No, there will not be a Give Thanks campaign in November this year. Last year was a remarkable opportunity for us, but it's not an annual thing.
Troy, may I answer a question or two that are in
Of course.
the chat? I noticed there's a few that people were asking. The main one is, I'm new. I don't know where this group is. So I'm just going to explain it really quick. We have a Facebook group that we created last year. It's called the NAWA. Let's see if I can find the exact name on here. NAWA. Now that I'm saying it, Communication Support Community. If you look in the chat, I linked it. Further up, we'll send it to you again in your emails. If you're new to social media, if you're a new social media person, it's a great place to go. We've been posting all sorts of resources all year on really basic things and more advanced things. You can also ask tons of questions in that group. There's a lot of experienced people. So that's a great place to go to look for resources. And then the other question was, thank you for posting the link down there. Let me find that one other question that I saw. About Laguna Niguel stake calendars and things. If I get the link to the calendar from Brooke Reynolds, she's in the North America West group and she created that calendar. So we'll try and get a link to that for you. If she has one, she can share so that you can create your own if you're interested. So I think that was the other question that I saw. So thank you.
So I don't see other questions. Oh, I see a few more that are coming in here.
Yes.
Sandy, do you want to pull from those?
Sure. Christine Formica says she's heard a few times people mentioning they were hesitant to use the church's name. Is the goal to involve the community in lighting the world without drawing undue attention to the church? Great question. Who would like to field that answer? Tanya?
The goal of Light the World is so much broader than the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I think we have the opportunity to be ambassadors for this message. And it's so relatable to other faiths, and such a win when we can join and link arms and be able to inspire members of our community to light the world through love. Does that answer the question?
That's a great answer, Tanya. Thank you so much. There's a question from Bruce Gant asking if the church will send daily prompt emails as they have in past years about Light the World this year.
And I'll field that question. We are uncertain at this point. We've heard a couple of things saying that it may not be the same as in previous years. So we just watch the Facebook group and we'll let you know about that just as soon as we have a definitive answer. Thanks for that question. There are some opinions or ideas rolling around that we haven't been able to pin down yet.
We also have a comment from an anonymous attendee whose calling is actually in emergency communications and is wondering how those serving in that capacity might be able to help. Any ideas?
Just off the top of my head, you know, this has been a difficult 18 months, whether it's been COVID, whether it's been the wildfires. You know, there's been so many trials. I will say that, you know, if you've been involved in emergency communication, perhaps there are stories that you know of goodness, of heartwarming stories that those in the community have done to help others. And so that might be worth highlighting, things that you're aware of, that might tie in nicely to this campaign.
Yes.
Sandy, I'm seeing one more. It says, I was the communications director before this, but a few years ago, I know what's supposed to be happening-ish, but my replacement is less engaged and organized than I was. So I'm in corporate memory and sometimes do a little more than just social media. I don't know who our current CCCD is, as I have zero interaction with them. Plus, I'm outgoing as I've received a new calling in the ward level. But throwing this to a yet to be determined person this time of the year when I feel so overwhelmed is a daunting task. So I think this is a very, very good question. And, you know, as I was listening to Dan and to Christina and Kirk, I was thinking, wow, there's a lot here. And so my message to this group is begin where you are. And we're not comparing ourselves to anyone. We're not comparing ourselves to other stakes. So we know that every person on this call can't do everything, but we also know that everyone on this call can do something. And so my counsel is be happy with where you are. Don't compare yourself, and think creatively. Meet with your counsel. Think yourself. What can you do, and build from there.
And I think we've answered all the questions.
I see one more. It says, are giving machines back? Yes, they are back, but let me just say they're very, very hard to get. I'll say Brother Pimentel has done a lot of work. I think we have 2 for sure, maybe 3 in our area, but you know, we've been working on these for literally a year. So yes, they're back, but let me just say they're not placing them everywhere. So if you have ideas for next year, that would be the time to begin working with that. But yes, they're back. And with that, I'm cognizant we're now approaching an hour, and I just wanted to go do a quick round robin. Dan, Christina, Kirk, from a social media perspective, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you said, gee, I wish we've covered that?
Nothing that I think we missed exactly, but I just want to encourage each of you who are interested and responsible for social media to just keep an eye on the Facebook group. The link is in the chat for anyone who's curious about what that's all about or how to get there. We have over 1,000 members in that group, and that group's for a lot of things, not just social media, but it happens to be a really good way to communicate things quickly in an ongoing fashion. So between now and early December, we'll be updating, sharing ideas, releasing information there. So check in if you're looking for ideas about how to do social media, and also media. If Tanya has updates that she wants to easily share with you, that's a really great way instead of having it go through 4 emails to get to you. So
Thank you.
we hope that's a useful resource for you.
Thanks. Tanya, is there anything more you'd add to this discussion?
I'm mindful of that last comment, Troy, that you made about just being overwhelmed. And I would just echo the, start with where you are. And what I have found is that as I remember whose work this really is, that my meager efforts are magnified to do extraordinary things if I just take the first step. And that's when we see the miracles happen. And that can happen with this work. And it's rewarding to see and hear about. And I am grateful for so many of you that do take that step. And we're all in this same great work together, and can support and lift one another, hopefully.
Thank you, Tanya. The other thing that I will say is each year, Tanya's just done a marvelous job of highlighting these stories, and literally dozens and dozens of stories in our area. And I will say that Tanya has been a fantastic resource. I've seen state communications media directors reach out to Tanya and say, hey, is this a good story? And Tanya can help refine it. So I'll just say Tanya is a tremendous resource. Tanya, at the risk of overwhelming you, would you mind sharing out your email address if people have specific questions to media outreach?
I can do that. We also have very, very talented coordinating council media people. Yep. And so if you know and have one, that's a great starting place. But for those that don't know where to go, I'm going to drop my contact information in the chat.
Thank you. So with that, I want to thank Sister Sandy Hinman, who's helped pull all this together, and special thanks to Dan Hinman and to Christina and to Kirk, our social media experts, and special thanks to Tanya Hinman. As I say, she began pioneering efforts for this campaign in 2017, working directly with Bonneville Communications, and she's been just a tremendous resource. And we're very lucky in the West to have Tanya and Dan and Christina and Kirk. So thank you all.